Time for some Big Ten Power Rankings right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. Please like and subscribe right here and check out the team channels, many coming from the Big Ten. We've got Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska, Rutgers, Indiana, USC, Oregon as well. Check out the channels and the weekly live streams that we provide. All right, let's run them down. And this is simply going to be my determination of the best team in the Big Ten all the way down to number 18. So this is not a resume ranking per se, as we do with the top 25 that actually makes sense. I'm just going to lay out, these are the best teams in the Big Ten. One team in particular will not make sense to you based on what they've accomplished on the field or failed to accomplish on the field in regards to wins and losses. But again, power rankings are open to interpretation. And for me, this is simply my listing of what I believe to be the best teams in the Big Ten. We're starting to gain a little separation. I made the comment a couple weeks ago, 4 through 13 are a toss-up. All of those teams could beat any of those other teams. That probably still holds true, but we're starting to see some separation toward the top. Not to the very top, Ohio State, Oregon, but to the top tier of the Big Ten, that next level. We're starting to see some elevation from Wisconsin, especially Illinois, for example. Then we're starting to see some of what appear to be mid-tier teams in the Big Ten start to drag down, like Rutgers in particular in recent weeks. So let's run it down, starting with Purdue. We wanted to get them out of the basement a couple weeks ago when they played so well against Illinois. Could have pulled out a win, lost in overtime, 50-49. They have discovered a quarterback in this freshman Ryan Brown, but he had a rough time, as did the entire team, against Oregon, 35-zip. So coming off that excellent effort in Champaign, I would have loved to have seen Purdue, like UCLA, get a chance to build on that momentum, on that base, that foundation that they built, use that confidence, that momentum swing against a decent opponent that they had a chance to defeat, but they just got steamrolled and punched in the mouth by Oregon. So it's a bye week for Purdue. They've been outscored by FBS opponents 269-93. At number 18 in the Big Ten, Boiler up. At number 17, we've got a Rutgers team that at one point actually somebody threw out there in the national media, Mr. Kirk Herbstreit, that Rutgers could possibly be a college football playoff team. And the Big Ten did them all sorts of favors, inexplicably, to set up their season to be as successful as possible. No Ohio State, no Michigan, no Penn State, no Iowa, no Oregon on the schedule. Toughest team on the schedule in the Big Ten appeared at the time to be USC. Rutgers will play them this week. They got to travel out to the West Coast. Good luck. UCLA came in and beat them a week after Wisconsin completely dismantled this team. This Rutgers team that we thought was strong on defense and in the rushing attack, not so much. I don't know where this team's strong right now because they're getting steamrolled and they are falling apart after those nice wins against Virginia Tech outside the conference and against Washington, in which, warning sign there, 3 missed field goals and giving up 500 yards of total offense to the Huskies in a home game. At USC this week, Rutgers needs to make a stand. They have plummeted to number 17. Let's give it up for Deshaun Foster. He, if nothing else, has held this football team together. UCLA rising in the Big Ten standings at number 16 in our power rankings after a 35-32 win. Not to be discounted, traveling 3 time zones because much has been ballyhooed about that record. As a road team traveling all those time zones, UCLA gets the job done in Piscataway against Rutgers 35-32, 1 week after taking Minnesota to the final 27 seconds before dropping that game. Ethan Garber's back at quarterback, accounted for 5 touchdowns in this game. And again, UCLA's playing better football. Number 16 in our power rankings, Bruins. The Maryland Terps, down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Then later, 90 seconds away from possibly plummeting to the bottom of our Big Ten power rankings and a record of 0-4. Having already lost to Michigan State and to Northwestern by 27 points, Maryland got the offense going. Billy Edwards, good for you. Excellent performance against USC. Ty Felton has all the receiving leads in regards to receptions, yardage, and so forth in the Big Ten. And the Terps, they come back to pull out a huge win against USC at home. Maryland goes to Minnesota to take on the Gophers coming up this week. At number 15 in our power rankings, the resurgent Maryland Terps. Coming off that remarkable season in year one under David Braun, who was the interim at the time. Northwestern at 3-4 right now, 1-3 in the Big Ten. They did have the big win on a Friday night against Maryland, then worked into the bye week. So Northwestern a bit of a momentum, able to reset with the bye, coming off 27-point win against Maryland. They've got Iowa coming up. They figured out their quarterback situation with the freshman Jack Lausch. Northwestern, number 14 in our Big Ten power rankings. Nebraska did not play Missouri this week, but it certainly was a show-me game for the Huskers, and they did not show out in any way. GBR, the Black Shirts, the defense, taking on the Indian offense. That was the matchup, and it was to see who was a contender possibly and who a pretender between IU and Nebraska. And man, Nebraska got steamrolled, run out of the building in Bloomington, 56-7. That's a complete embarrassment for a program that's been an embarrassment for the last 7 seasons. Matt Rule, I've got to start to question. I think he's a really good coach, but is he going to turn it around? They had what was a nice win against Colorado, which actually is gaining traction as the Buffs are playing better in the Big 12. But this Rutgers win has shown us nothing now, winning by a touchdown against a bad football team. Again, they blow it late against Illinois. Dylan Raiola has now had 2 opportunities to step up and has failed to do so. Bad game against Rutgers. Didn't matter because the Rutgers offense was non-existent. But down the stretch against Illinois and overtime was a disaster. And, of course, the Nebraska offense against what was not supposed to be a strength for IU could not show up, only scored a touchdown in Bloomington. At number 13, they have plummeted, and rightfully so, in our Big Ten power rankings. GBR. How about Jonathan Smith and Michigan State? We know that this guy can coach, but how long was it going to take him? Well, he's still got a ton of work to do, but man, Saturday was a impressive, big step for this program against an Iowa team that's not as good as we thought they were, but still, against that Iowa defense, Michigan State did not punt. They kicked 6 field goals, but they didn't punt. Scored 32 against Iowa. Huge win for Michigan State to go to 4-3. After having to go up against Ohio State and Oregon in their first 2 Big Ten games, they got to catch a breath. Take on some talent in a program and a team that's in their same stratosphere, and boy, did they get the job done. Michigan State now takes on Michigan. They've gotten steamrolled by the Wolverines, of course, the last 2 years and just skull-dragged last season in particular. Who would have thought a month ago that this would be a very winnable game against Michigan State? At number 12 in our Big Ten power rankings, Sparty. Hounded by close losses early, North Carolina, Michigan, PJ Fleck's team now pulling out these games in recent weeks against USC, of course. A monumental win for this program from a historic standpoint. Of course, USC's not that good. And then going out to UCLA and winning at the Rose Bowl and avoiding disaster and embarrassment against a bad Bruins team. Minnesota now 2-2 in the Big Ten. Got a date against Maryland coming up, number 11 in our Big Ten power rankings. Looking to make it back to postseason play? Row the boat. There are worse teams in the Big Ten, of course, but are there worse narratives, worse situations than what we see unfolding in Ann Arbor? Michigan scores 1 measly touchdown against an Illinois defense that gave up 49 against Purdue and over 500 yards of total offense. They lose at Illinois by 2 scores. They lose to Washington by 2 scores. This is not a very good football team. They are that close. Of course, they barely beat USC, final play of the game. Barely beat Minnesota. This is not a good football team, and they should still be elite on defense. And we know the quarterback situation, much documented right here at the Voice of College Football, and our thoughts there. Jack Tuttle, of course, has been the guy that they have gone to week after week, and he turned it over a couple times against Illinois. At number 10 in our Big Ten power rankings, inexplicably, Michigan. How would incoming Pac-12 teams fare in the Big Ten? Will it go the way of the high-flying teams from the West Coast, or will it go with the muscle and the trench warfare, the strength, the depth of the Big Ten? Well, I think that the Big Ten old guard is generally winning the war. I think we can look through USC, UCLA, Oregon. Well, Oregon, of course, is a different deal. Washington. And now talking about the Huskies. Yeah, they lose at Rutgers, but man, 500 yards of total offense, 3 missed field goals. But they went to Iowa. This is the microcosm of what we're talking about right here. This was a really good football game for close to 3 quarters. Iowa just wore down Washington with defense, with special teams, and with superior special teams, and the defensive front, just the offensive line taking over. So Washington, Jed Fish, this is a team you don't necessarily want to play. Interesting team, 2-2 in the Big Ten. Lost at the goal line on a goal line stand against Washington State. Lost the aforementioned Rutgers game, in which they could be very close to just being a one-loss team. But mid-tier definitely in the Big Ten. At number 9 in our power rankings, Huskies. Iowa football, worst loss since... We will fill in the blank at some point. I got to go through the record books and go through the season results. Iowa only a 6-point favorite, so from a point spread standpoint, according to Vegas, not a huge upset, but Iowa always wins these games. They always take care of business against the mid to lower to the very bottom of the Big Ten. They don't lose these games. They did on Saturday night in East Lansing. Gave up 32 points. We have conjectured on our Iowa show with Corey Bradham many times what would happen to this team, this program, because they rely so heavily on defense and special teams. What if the defense goes from being great, top 5 in the country, to just being good? Well, this is what's happening. Special teams from being elite, the best, to just being good. What would happen? Well, the offense has not stepped up. Cade McNamara is one of the worst quarterbacks in the Big Ten. The passing attack is abysmal. Could not keep up with Michigan State. Could not move the ball downfield. Still believe it's I got them number 8 in the Big Ten. They got a date against Northwestern. They should take care of business. But again, this may be a different Iowa team that we're seeing this season. At number 8 in our power rankings, Hawkeyes. Okay, this is the controversial selection that everyone is going to jump on me about. I get it. Their resume doesn't stack up. They're 1-4. 1-4 in the conference, and I've got them number 7. But I believe they're the at least 7th best team in the conference. Who else in this conference, other than the very top teams, maybe not Indiana even, would play that well against LSU? We see what the LSU's doing in the SEC right now. Who else in the Big Ten would take Penn State to overtime, score 28 consecutive points in the second half against Wisconsin, and blow them away? Their losses are excruciating. They don't have the resume to back it up. But if we're just talking about top teams in the Big Ten, at 1-4, USC. A team that lost to USC, but is mounting wins against the weak part of their schedule since getting blown out in the second half against USC, since getting blown out against Alabama. I'm going to put them in this week's category of Nebraska last week. Wisconsin, show us what you got. You're mounting blowout wins against the weak part of your schedule. Good for you. 46-point win against Purdue. Trounced Rutgers. Trounced Northwestern. The last 3 wins have been impressive. Braden Locke, though, has thrown 4 interceptions the past 3 weeks. Now it's Penn State at home. Wisconsin, what you got? For right now, number 6 in our Big Ten power rankings, Badgers. Some of you may know I'm an unapologetic Brett Bielema fan. Look at what he's doing at Illinois. It's back to 2022. Except maybe this team will close out wins, not lose close, because that team was much better than its final 8-5 record. Illinois takes out Michigan as a 4-point dog by 14. They have that one loss against Penn State where they acquitted themselves very well in Happy Valley, at least defensively in that game. Couldn't do anything on offense. This Purdue game almost proved to be a disaster, but they got through that, and good teams have to get through those kind of games. And Illinois, look at this. 6-1. Love it. Love it. And they got a date against, at Oregon. Should we expect anything? But man, if Illinois plays them tough, not even looking for a win, play tough on the road, Fighting Illini. Would love to see it. At number 5 in our Big Ten Power Rankings, the Illini. We've been saying it the entire season, every week, as the wins have mounted. How good is Indiana? Are they really that good? They played them, FIU, and all these lousy non-conference games, Charlotte, and then it was UCLA at the Rose Bowl. Okay, they travel time zones, but UCLA's awful. But the thing that Indiana was doing was trouncing these teams. Former Indiana teams would have scraped by the MAC-type schools. They would scrape by maybe the worst team in the Big Ten, but they wouldn't just put the hammer down. Then they beat Maryland by 2 or 3 touchdowns. They keep mounting these wins. Okay, now it's Nebraska. We know that they're at least legit from a physical standpoint. Did Indiana pass the test? Now their biggest worry is holding on to their coach, Curt Cignetti. I gave it to you last week during our Power Rankings rundown. Does Nebraska suck? Well, Curt Cignetti says, voice of college football, emphatically, yes, Nebraska does suck. Indiana, 7-0. Ohio State and Michigan are coming down the road. But for this week, this is an intriguing matchup. Washington, Will Rogers, they throw it around. Curtis Rourke, unfortunately, missing this game against Washington. He's been ruled out after an exceptional 74% completion percentage, and that's the unfortunate part of this deal, is that Indiana has to go with a backup quarterback against Washington. But as of right now, number 4 in our Big Ten Power Rankings, Hoosiers. Coming off a bye week, Penn State heads to Camp Randall Stadium to take on Wisconsin. These two teams have had excellent games historically in the series. Penn State, of course, 6-0. As for their latest result, I was not impressed with their effort at USC. They were outplayed in that game. USC was the better team for most of the 3.5 hours. But I was impressed with, Tyler Warren, who's not going to be impressed with that guy. I was glad to see a lot of people across the country were awakened to how good a player he is. And then also Drew Aller in the clutch, and really the entire team in the clutch. And USC is a talented team. So give it up for Penn State. And of course, they got the Buckeyes looming. But for right now, tricky game at Wisconsin. Penn State's got to look the part as one of the best teams in the country. At number 3 in our Big Ten Power Rankings, we are now down to the final 2. And I'm going to break my own rule that I outlined at the beginning of the video, where I'm just lining up what I believe to be the best team in the Big Ten down to the worst team in the Big Ten. But I'm going to honor the win. Have to honor the win here. So, Ohio State, Oregon. Oregon won the game. They left points on the field. They could have won by more. They shut down Ohio State's rushing attack in the second half to virtually nothing. 2 of the best running backs in the country could not go anywhere. They, of course, torched Ohio State secondary. They, of course, pass protected around Dylan Gabriel, who performed all night. On the Ohio State side, 32-31, where they had a questionable call. They also were in field goal range to win the game on the road at Autzen Stadium. Vegas tells us that that's a 3-point swing, so neutral site. Theoretically, Ohio State wins the game. Maybe they played a poor game. I believe they didn't play their best, but Oregon was the better team on the night. I believe Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten. It doesn't matter that they have yet to prove that. They had an opportunity there. They blew it. Now they can prove it down the road, of course. They got to take care of business to set up a rematch in the Big Ten Championship game, which leads me to some interesting videos that we're going to present here at the Voice of College Football concerning all these conference races, but we will get to those at a later date. So for right now, it's Ohio State 2, Oregon number 1 in our Big Ten Power Rankings. It is the right thing to do, folks. Please lock in on the USC show. That's on Tuesdays and Friday nights. Iowa, that's on Tuesday afternoon. Ohio State's on Wednesday morning. We've got Michigan on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. Oregon's on either Tuesday or Thursday nights. I don't know what it is. Got to check in with Exploring Ben and the group there. All right, I think that about covers it. Nebraska, don't forget about the Huskers, even though they would like us to forget about them this week. 56-7. But Justin Adams and, of course, our Nebraska live show is every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And lest I forget, the network is expanding by the week. Jeffrey, Indiana Live, that's Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then you got Adam Lamparello and the Rutgers live show. Woo! We are bringing you the content right here at the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. Keep it locked in right here. Like and subscribe. See you next time.